Well, it's that time again. I am excited to bring you the Dow. So if you have a number between 1 and 81 you want to share and want to sit down with me and talk a little bit about what your day looks like, maybe what your holiday looks like, maybe what your week is going to look like, why don't you join me and give me a number between 1 and 81. Before anyone comes on, I usually pick a number and I'm looking at them all right now and I'm just deciding what to do. So for those of you who don't know, the Tao is the Tao Te Ching. It's an ancient text that was written, um, I looked this up. I think it's 900 BC. Uh, and I'm gonna look that up right now and see what we come up with. So it was written 600 BC by Lao Tzu. So yeah, 600 BC. I thought it was a little older than that, but 600 BC is pretty old. And so we call it an ancient text, the Tao Te Ching. And if you have a number between 1 and 81, because the Tao is 81 chapters or verses long, we will read that verse and then go through it one by one together. So if there's a number burning in you, why don't you join me and then we will run through the Tao. So now the Tao is a magical text. When you pick a number, there is just something about that resonates with each and every one of you that pick a number. If you don't pick a number, of course, there's, maybe the one that I read with somebody is going to resonate with you in one way or another. But if you're here and you are interested in getting your Tao for today, why don't you join me and give me a number between 1 and 81. I'm going to sip my coffee while I wait for you to join. That's me sipping a nice coffee. It's a decaf because I don't drink caffeine anymore. But all right, I'm going to pick a number. If nobody is up for joining, I'm going to pick 40. 40's jumping out to me. Ooh, so short. 4 lines. So this is going to be really quick. I hope somebody wants to join me between now and then. Returning is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. So this is a beautiful chapter 40. Oh man, such a nice chapter, such a good it's these short and sweet chapters are fucking awesome. Cuz we get so much out of so little here in the Tao. So if you have a number between 1 and 81, I'll always come back to 40 and continue talking about that. But if you want to join me and give me a number, I'd be happy to chat with you about the Tao. So return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. I've found in doing these Tao of the days here on Wisdom that the end always relates back to the beginning. Sometimes we can look at these as independent things, right? So there are two sort of stanzas in this chapter 40. One, removing is the movement of the Tao, yielding is the way of the Tao. And then the other, all things are born of being, being is born of non-being. And these two are going to relate. They don't necessarily seem like they relate at the moment, right? At the moment, what we have is two things: one, return and yielding, right? So what is return? Is the movement of the Tao. Well, that cycles, right? Like it returns, like spring follows winter, right? And then goes to summer, autumn, winter, then spring again, returning to that thing. And it's always interesting. You step away from a thing, you step away from a connection, you step away from an understanding, but you always come back. There's always this space of coming back. I've talked to people, for many years recently of this kind of concept of returning. There I go again, sipping my decaf. So this concept of returning is the movement of the Tao. A lot of people say, oh, this happened before, it's going to happen again. Yes, that's true. These things do happen in cycles, but it is not just returning in the same cycle, right? You are returning to the same idea or the same concept now at a different level, right? You are returning up, but there's also this space of returning, like you return to your source, right? So you're born and you're taken away from source. You are not really, but you experience separateness. You experience the complex paradox of being both spiritual and physical, uh, and but you return to just the spiritual at the end, right? So returning is the movement of the Tao, right? Like when you strip something of, like if you strip a mountain, if you strip I'm trying to understand this. And so if anybody has ideas about what it means to return is the movement of the Tao and what that signifies for you, I'd love to hear. I'm going to go into the next sentence because it might help us kind of understand this. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. So yielding, I understand as allowing, right? Letting things be as they are. This isn't forceful. The Tao yields. And I love the term yielding, right? Yielding is the thing that just accepts, right? I'm going to yield something. So this is the way of the Tao. When you want to be in accordance with the Tao, you will yield. Right? You will not try and stand firm anywhere. You will not try and make your point heard. You will not try and hold on to something that is fleeting. You will yield its leaving. You will yield its arrival. You will yield, when winter comes, one doesn't try and stop winter from coming. You yield to winter, and then you pull out your winter clothes, right? Like, or or you yield to winter and you leave, right? That's another way of yielding, is to just like allow winter to be. You do not try and stop winter, but we often get into, in the manifestation here in the world we are surrounded by, we can see if we are yielding, if we are, and I want to get back to this, returning is the movement of the Tao. And it might just have to do with cycles, but I really do want to flesh that out a little bit more before we move on to the second part of this 40, this chapter 40. So return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. Actually, this is an online version. I'm going to open up my print version to see if it is the same. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. Yeah. So return. Return. This is the word that puzzles me. Anybody have any ideas? Please join me. So yielding is the way of the Tao. In order to progress, in the way to move forward, one must yield. And yielding is such a beautiful way of thinking about living, right? If we look at the world today, it's very much forced, right? There's a lot of forcefulness. There's a lot of space being taken up by people trying to force their will upon others and to stop individuals from being who they are. But if we could all just yield to the ideas of others, if we could all just yield to the people that we are surrounded by, like we can yield to them, we can allow them to be who they are without having to hold on to our concepts of what it means to be heard, or what it means for us to live. Like, nobody is trying to stop you from living your life. And if you can yield, this is an interesting thing. Going back to the return is the movement of the Tao. When you have, or when we have, or when I have had, best probably to just keep it in my own backyard, when I have had thoughts of, oh, I don't want this, or oh, this is bad, or oh, these things are not desirable. This experience is not desirable. As soon as I have thoughts of that nature, I often have to examine those thoughts pretty deeply, because those thoughts are coming from a place that is, maybe negative, or coming from a place of judgment. And so what I end up doing is returning to that concept with a new perspective. I return to the idea that, like, oh, I don't want to learn Spanish, right? When I was in high school, I didn't want to learn Spanish. And then 10 years ago, I find my family, and all of a sudden, that's the only thing I want to do is learn Spanish, because my family's living in Spain, and now I want to move to Spain. The anger and frustration that I carried when I was in high school to not learn Spanish. I'm an American, I don't need to learn Spanish. I had this concept, even though I was very, very liberal and very open. But even still, like, this is what this first, oh, Bella, this is what this first line kind of speaks to me, the returning to a concept. Bella, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, Martin John. Forgive me. It must have been a Freudian slip.
Quite all right. It's always nice to see you. Always nice to say hello.
Yeah, it's nice to say hello to you. And I think the bit was when you said, I didn't learn Spanish. And I said, why should I? I am American. And I think, I just got onto to your site, and I just it's just a Freudian slip.
Mm.
Well,
No, yeah,
what?
like, Spanish is my second language now. But when I
Mhm.
was younger, I was so staunch in in these concepts, and my Tao today 40 starts with return is the movement of the Tao. And every time now as an adult, when I see myself reject something, anything, I always am reminded of that moment in my life when I was so staunch against something, and then it turned out that it was the thing I wanted most.
Mhm. I know I hear you very much, and I've said this on your stage. My formative years were at an international school,
Yeah.
and I come from a rather international background, so ethnocentricity was not something I grew up with. It came much later in my life.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think perhaps why my nervous system triggered it was because. I think that if I did not, my parents and those around us hadn't told us about our African heritage and the rich history of Africa, I would have felt um, similar to what you felt. In
Yeah.
fact, my grandfather schooled abroad and became a lawyer. And he said none of his descendants should have Western sounding names. So Bella is just easier for me to
Yeah.
use because I get so many variations of my name. And, he left at a very young age, same as many of his descendants before him, because they were sent to learn how the white man thinks. And The thing is that when you have a deep, deep sense of your history, because every history has its highs and its lows. I
Hmm.
mean, the Spanish have a very, very rich and very intersectional history. We've spoken about it on this stage, but
Yes.
they've also had their lows. And when you go to another country or another culture, and that the embracing of that whole history is not understood, then you tend to sort of diminish the genetic lineage that you've got. And a favorite saying, again, my dear father used to say, until um, until the lion tells its story, the historian will always be the victor. The hunter will always be the victor.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, coming to America, not knowing that England, France, and Spain were once the major forces in the Western civilization, um, it may have thought, oh, no, 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 this is America. And I love America. I even have a flag I was bought by my family to sleep with because I love your country. But it suffice to say, too, that, there are sometimes cultural observations which may not reflect the real truth. So don't hit yourself on the head. I love
Oh,
Spain.
no.
I love the Basque territory. I love Barcelona. I love the South. And I'll end with a saying. I was in the South and we went for paella. And I said, well, I don't want squid. I don't want this. I don't want that. And the waiter just looked at me and said, so you want plain rice? But, the history of Spain is very, very rich, and its intersectionality with the Moors is also very rich. So I am glad you have embracing it now. And I'm not even going to speak my Spanish because I speak Spanish with the same intonation as I'm speaking now. So
Oh.
I don't want you to throw me off the stage. But thank you for
No,
having me
not
up.
at all. I would never throw you off. It's always wonderful to meet with to share with you because you always have so much beautiful guidance. That's what we'll call it.
Gracias.
Ah, de nada, mi amor.
That's it. Nothing else.
Okay.
So, how are you coping with the perceptions that you said to go back? You need to go back. I'd like to know more about that.
Yes. Well, my Tao today says return is the movement of the Tao. And
Mm-hmm,
so this space of like I want to return to those assumptions. I want to return and reevaluate, like it's amazing for me today to to have been in my life faced with so many beautiful things and to be who I am today.
mm-hmm,
I look at my time in high school when I was, an addict, and I had a very certain way of looking at the world, and it was beautiful for that moment because it brought me to where I am. There's no animosity or frustration there, but
mm-hmm,
but I curiously look at my decisions and say, "Huh, I didn't want to learn Spanish. I didn't want to reach outside myself. I didn't want to travel the world. I didn't want to leave Chicago. There were all of these things that I was not willing to do for myself."
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting you say this, and when you talked about being an addict in high school, I remember the words of Deepak Chopra. He said that addiction is a way in which an individual tries to reach bliss. And what comes across to me when you say this, and I could be wrong, or is that that spiritual aspect of you must have been there at a very early age, that reaching from something much deeper in you, which you could not reach. And I don't know why I didn't go that route, but when I suffered a major setback in my life, now I look at it and I think, well, if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have done the El Camino Santiago, which is, it's
Oh
a,
my God,
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, it was an amazing experience. For those who haven't heard of it, El Camino Santiago is sometimes known as the Way of St. James, and it's a pilgrimage. You can start from anywhere, and you walk across the whole of northern Spain. So you see all the different regions, and
Where did you start?
I started off in France.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, and what it taught me, it was definitely going back to find meaning, because
Yes.
when I suffered a trauma, and I was led onto the Camino by a series of events. Perhaps one day I'll talk about it. But what was surprising is that I had all this mindsets, and the Camino actually takes you to the past. So the first day I was like, yay, I am a 400-meter runner. This is just going to be, used to be, this is going to be just a breeze. And I
Yeah.
found out it was not a breeze climbing the Pyrenees,
Yeah.
at 25 kilometers at a very steep incline. Another thing that I found, part of it is called um, what is it? Viper's Nest, because Spain has snakes,
Yes.
and that was another fear I had, and I completed it before I knew it was called the Viper's Nest. you know, and then you take a rock, which is
Mm.
for a burden you want to release in your life. And as I said, I'd gone through the trauma, and I had this chest pain every single day. Then I'd have to be kind and be polite to avoid my being labeled with those who were persecuting me. So anyway, I took this stone. They said, take a stone, and then at the highest point of the Camino, you lay it and you lay your burden. And if you look on YouTube, you see all these people going, oh my God, it changed my life, blah, 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 blah. And then I get there, I lay the stone, and when I come down, I'm coming down this little mold of all these stones that have been laid, and I experience the gift of forgiveness. And
Mm.
and slowly it peels all the stuff that I'd been through related to that. Then one of the culprits was somebody who was blonde and blue eyed. And then I ended up walking many miles with a Russian who was blonde and blue eyed. You know what I mean? And, sometimes we're alone, doing all these climbs. And he'd been a soldier in Afghanistan. So he was teaching me how to navigate the terrain. And it was just example over example, as almost as if I needed to do it to wash through all the preconceptions and all the terrible experiences that I had um, I had gone through. And at the end, there were so many other lessons. At the end, as I came through the alleyway, and there's a church where St. James, the Apostle of Jesus, is buried, and they have something called the Pilgrim Mass. So you've walked almost 800 kilometers, or, up and down hills, everything, learned all these lessons. And then I looked to my left, and the church has got scaffolding. And I'm thinking, this is all I need. After all I've been through, there's not going to be a pilgrim mass. And as I said that, I don't know whether the person read my mind. They said, oh, it's okay, the pilgrim mass is on. And at that time, these words came to me. your Camino is complete. Your pilgrimage has just begun. And
Mm.
every single day, I feel another part of my life I'm grateful for. I'm just grateful for it as I shed it. And there's no right or there's no wrong. It is the journey. And my interest in epigenetics also shows that we come in with all these markers, but if we are conscious, we can work on erasing them and form different neural pathways. But they are what has made us us. They have made us, our experiences have made us how we navigate the world and also the gifts we give to each other. My God, that was a sermon. Thank you very
No,
much.
and you should know that when I move to Spain, like I'm going to be moving near Santiago de Compostela because
Uh-huh.
my family lives there.
Oh,
I've been visiting Santiago for years.
uh-huh.
I when I go, I visit the church. I visit the chapel of Santiago. And
Yeah.
it is like, and I meet all of my friends out there. I meet in the courtyard out there, so I'm
Yes.
very familiar with Santiago. I have not done any part of the Camino yet, but I do plan on doing that before I move there.
Oh, excellent. And do you know that the area, Galicia, I think it is, that
Yeah.
area has very low COVID rates. So I'll come and
Yes.
visit. There's
Yeah.
obviously some spiritual thing going on there because it's just stuck there and it's got very low COVID rate. So, oh, I wish you all the very, very, very best. And I'm sure we'll be talking to each other before you make your final move.
Yes. Like that is still that. Well, I await the invitation to move into that, but I'm always steering towards it.
Okay, thank you so much, Martin John,
Always.
for listening. A pleasure.
So to go back to 40, um, return is the movement of the Tao. What we just spoke about, right? When Bella said that her Camino was over, but her pilgrimage has just begun. Um, we do that. We set out and we say, I am going on a pilgrimage. But then you finish. It's actually the end is the beginning. And you've returned. You've returned as a new person. You allow that person who you were to die. And I actually think that like this may have very well happened to me just this past week. I walked through a door um, a week ago that brought me into the light of a new person, to be a new me, to accept more of who I am, and to allow myself to return to the beginning. And here I am at the beginning of who I am, once again, allowing that which I was to perish, but I don't die. I continue, and I've begun anew once again. And this is the return. Like maybe this is what we do every night when we go to sleep. We wake up and we return to the beginning. The next line, we talked about a bit already. Like yielding is the way of the Tao. For those of you who have joined, please, this is the Tao of the day. I encourage you to come on and give me a number between 1 and 81, and we will talk about your Tao for the day. We'll read it over, and then we'll go through it line by line and see how it resonates with your life and your thoughts at this moment. Yielding is the way of the Tao is the next line in 40, my Tao for today. Yielding is allowing, like even allowing Bella to come up and speak. And as I did that, she just spoke more and more to me, right? It wasn't like I wanted to demand my space. This is mine, mine, mine. I want to share it, and I want to share it with you. I want to yield my space for you to have space. I want to yield all of this, because holding on to it is not going to serve me, because I will return to the beginning tomorrow. So yield today, and then I can return. I can always come back. I can always take control of it again, or I can always just fall asleep and wake up with a new day, being a new person, being a new me. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. Okay, so we've discussed that pretty much at length. All things are born of being. So all things, all stuff that we have, it's born of being, right? The stuff that we create is born of being, of like, and then being is born of non-being. So this is where we have to take a deep breath and understand both non-being and being. These are the things that we're relating to. All things are born of being. So we can look at that as things that we create, things that we see, things that we experience. They're born of being. Like, in order for a thing to exist, you have to exist first. You have to exist to be able to observe, to be able to create, to be able to manifest. You have to exist in your body. Without your body, a thing can't exist, because you will not need it, right? Like the old William Burroughs thing, like, the impasse of a one God universe. He can't do anything because the act of doing presupposes opposition. Right? He can't go anywhere because he's already everywhere. This is why you have a body, because without your body, you are everywhere and can't do anything. So things are born of being. We start with you as a being. We start with you as having a body. Once you have a body, a thing can exist. I want to be able to relate this back to return as the movement of the Tao. All things are born of being, so you have to have a body. So you embody a body. But return, being the movement of the Tao, means that your spirit will no longer eventually have that body. Your spirit will surpass that body. Being is born of non-being. So non-being is just plain consciousness, is God, is the universe, is all of this that is around us that is not things, right? Not your body, not your car, not your house, not your anything. It is you. It is just everything that is not being is consciousness. And all things that are being are touch consciousness. But in order for there to be being, it is born from non-being. In order for there to be things, it is born from being. So one thing has to start, right? So this is what, this the old chicken and the egg about like our our bodies. Did our bodies create the things? Yes, like that is what the Tao is saying here. The fact that we were able to touch from a non-being conscious place, we were able to touch being, which is this paradox of having a body and being in the mindset of in being in consciousness, being connected to all consciousness. All things are born of being. So everything that we experience is born because we have a body. Being is born of non-being. So non-being, consciousness in and of itself, said, I want to experience things. Thus created the body, created the planet, created the things. And those things went out and created more things. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. Return is the movement of the Tao. So your soul will return to consciousness. Your body will return to the thing rather than being enlightened or touched or having a soul. Your thing, your body will return to just being a body. Yielding is the way of the Tao. So spirit yields to all things, your consciousness yields to all things, but can you as a paradox embracing all things, can you yield? And that's the big question for us. Can we yield? Can we be here? And if you're here right now, and if you want to take some time and have a Tao for your day, please join me. Pick a number between 1 and 81, and we will go through a Tao together. The Tao Te Ching translates the canon of reason. It's all about living a reasonable life. So if you're here, would like to join me, I'm just wrapping up 40 now. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. And those two relate to each other very heavily. Being is born of non-being. So being turns into non-being. All things are born of being. So if being is born of non-being, all things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. I'm just really trying to grasp this in how one returns to the other. So things don't have meaning if there is no being, and things cannot continue to produce if there is no being behind it. And non-being creates being and returns to non-being. Being creates things, but things don't, I don't know, maybe things do. Maybe things are being, right? Like the table is just being a table, right? And we manifest the table in however way we do that. And then the table is just going to be. And that is our teacher, right? The table yields. You put something on the table, it's not going to knock it off. Right? It's not going to do anything. It is going to yield to your use of it. See, so it's interesting. So yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. All things are connected to non-being. All things are connected to the Tao. And so the table, the chair, the car, the job, the things are all born because we, connected to non-being, have created it. We have built it in our surroundings. So it's important to understand that we are also part of that. And when somebody does something to us, like we put things on a table, are we going to yield to that, or are we going to rebel against that? Are we going to fight that? Ultimately, we are going to return to non-being. And that's what's being said here, right? Return is the way of the Tao. So being is going to return to non-being. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. So if you've created something and everything follows the Tao, all things that are in the universe follow the Tao. Like that is, like, again, this is about being reasonable. So if you live a life that is not reasonable, you are not following in the Tao. But the things that we have created, those things follow the neutrality of the Tao. I love this one. It's a very good one. So if anybody out there wants to pick a number between 1 and 81, I would love to hear from you. I would love to go over another verse with you. Bella joined me and we talked a little bit about return. Return is so important. Yielding is so important. Where do you return? Where do you yield? Ultimately, all of this is going back to the beginning. We're all headed back that way. Doesn't mean we are living in our past, but we are moving forward to where we came from. If anybody wants to pick a number between 1 and 81, now is your time to jump in. Otherwise, I will be wrapping up shortly. My name is Martin John. I host the Recover Yourself podcast. You can find links on my Instagram site. You can find links and you can contact me. Oh, we do have somebody. Emerald of Ray. Emerald is going to join me. And that's beautiful. What a nice name.
Hello. Hello,
Hello,
Martin
Emerald. How are
John.
you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Great, 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 great room, great room. I love
Oh,
it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I was thinking the number 11. I was being
11.
asked to do 11.
11. Okay, I really love 11. It's one of the every time I read this first line, it's always like yes, like it is within the emptiness. So I'm going to go ahead and read this and then we'll go through it together.
Okay.
We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. We shape a clay pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. Thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that. And the way that I break that down, the way it's been coming to me in all of these religions and sayings and teachings is that it comes down to what I call like the masculine and the feminine, the mother and the father, like they were receiving, or the magnetism is the mother, and the structure or the beingness, or that would be the father. And in everything that you were saying, even when I was listening in just a minute ago, when you were talking to the other guest, and I could see in every single pattern, there's the mother and the father, and it's the same thing with us, so that when you talked about that inner space, that to me would be the mother, like that, like you said, the non-being, that would be the mother principle, the creative principle, where everything comes from, in the symbiote or the womb, where everything is being born from, where all potential is there. It's the pure potentiality of everything. And then the beingness would be like the structure. So like the wood would be the father, like that would be the structure that we can use and move. And I really was so enjoying what you were talking about just before I hit to come in, and you were explaining the return when you said that's the movement of the Tao. I think I have that right. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I just, that's just the first things I picked up on what you just read about 11. And so,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, this being and non-being, or yin and yang, or masculine and feminine. And I'm going to just kind of like break down the masculine and feminine, and we're going to say like yang is masculine, yin is feminine. And I like to use those terms because they're a little bit more esoteric. And when we say masculine and feminine, people think men and women. The thing is that I have a very feminine sort of being about me, right? And like the idea of yielding is really comforting to me. And so we're going to say like yin is yielding and yang is that masculine. And I only like to differentiate that so we don't get caught up in mother, father, like, because those gender roles, they're always really difficult, especially right now to many people. So what this looks like to me is like, you're right, like the things that yang or masculine stuff, the stuff of the world, is what we have to use, what we have to build with, what we have to work with. But we're not working, but that is just to create a framework of which to exist and be who we are. Right? We go to school, which is the framework, but we go to school so that we can be who we are and that we can engage with each other. And that is yielding. That, the way that many people engage in the world today is forceful. Many people engage in the world through judgment. That is the structure. Like an individual creates structure of being, and then all of a sudden judgment is opened and stigma is opened and all of these things start opening up. And that is the disease that happens within culture when we allow the structure to guide the being.
When you were just talking about the judgment and everything, and you were talking about you said it so well when you said that we within the culture, then we create the culture, right? And so it's almost like all of these movies with the AI. You know, if you look at these movies with the AI, they have this running theme, and that's that. Okay, so for various reasons, because we were intelligent or we needed something, okay, we created AI, and then AI started to take over, and now we have to destroy AI. You know, now we're in a war with our own creation, and to me, on a symbolism. Aspect, that's what the culture represents to me. It's like we create the culture for good reasons. We create a structure. We create an artificial intelligence, which is what the culture is. The culture is an artificial intelligence. It's an AI, right? Because the being created it just to define the being. But then we give way, just like in the movies of the artificial intelligence, we give way too much way to the artificial intelligence, which is an oxymoron, even in and of itself. You know, artificial intelligence, right? But the culture to me has always represented that, and it's like when we look at it as the creator of the culture or the structure, and we, instead of using that to define and then allowing that to be flexible in the feminine, or like you said, some people don't like the mother. The reason why in meditation I was told to use mother and father was because, one, as we start to look at it, we'll expand, but we all can recognize our mother and our father because we all came from that same concept. Everything is coming from, a mother and a father. So whether we're looking at it, in our own individual self, we had a mom and a dad, and even with those gender roles, it can kind of help to define the esoteric roles, because the father was, the builder, and that's, like you said, that's what the wood is. The wood is the structure. He's the structure, and then she's the, emotional balance, or the, unseen connective part, the magnetism that holds it all together. People always say that, mom holds it together, Bob the builder, and dad protects and provides. So even children can understand a concept because they have a mother and a father. And I think that that's why the universal intelligence has even devised that. But like you said, with that concept of mother and father, or yin and yang, or whatever, it all being the same thing, in the culture, we got to the point where that was where we created a concept that created a conflict. So now we have to not use the mother and the father, but that's how we came. That's what we represent. But it's the culture, like you were saying, is the culture that we created. It's not the fact that the word mother or father, or, because that's a blessed thing. I love my mom and my dad. Without them, I wouldn't be, and I'm the product of the two of them. So when I look at that dynamic, and even if I'm looking in my own mind, or if I'm looking at, like you said, looking at it from a if someone's trying to express their religious background, and I don't really understand Taoism, but I say, oh, okay, well, I can understand if you're explaining it to me on a very basic level. Okay, well, here would be the feminine. Okay, well, I know feminine and I know masculine. We all know that. So when we break down those concepts, they don't seem so foreign, and they don't seem so, against what everyone knows, because everyone came into being through a masculine and a feminine unity, right? And so, but it's the culture and all of these things, like you said, I love what you said there, because it's the culture that's made us separate. And then it's the culture we create that then gets, flaky and weird. And then we have to go back and we have to destroy it in a manner of, thumbs down type of way, instead of being able to expand through it. And that's what I think. I think that's where we're at now. I think we're moving to a place in our consciousness where we're ready to expand. We're always going to create something, and like you were talking about with the body, our spirit came in, but it knows there's going to be a time where it's not going to want to be held in that structure, viewing things from that particular angle. And that, to me, it goes back again to the unlimited potential, or the feminine, the pure creative principle, being balanced with the structure of the father, which we say is a happy union, a balanced home. A child needs a mother and a father, right? So we being that child, we need the balance inside ourselves of those two parts of ourselves. We need to be able to constantly have unlimited potential to create, make a structure, but understand we may outgrow the structure, and not to, like you were saying, put the structure in front of the being. And so, what do you think about that?
Mm. That's a lot. I mean, I anytime we try to define others, it becomes, or define concepts, it becomes difficult. And so, but what I see here is, once again, the structure. We as a society, I think, have taken the masculine currently, the yang energy, to its extreme. We now are building structures that we're trying to use, right? This is laws and rules and other things like that, rather than building structures and then use the whole, right? Like in your Tao for today, we join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. Without that center hole, your wheel is just a disc and you're not moving any wagon.
Right.
We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. If you made a pot without any emptiness, then your vessel is no longer holding anything. And that is the society that we have kind of built today. That's what we're working with today. We're working with a society that is so bent on the structure, thinking that the structure is the purpose. But if you had a house that was just solid in structure, you wouldn't be able to get inside because it was solid. And that, I think, like you said, exactly what you were saying, this idea that we've taken it too far. We've taken it to a place that it now has to be re-examined. And I think we've done this in the past. And when I was reading 40 earlier, return is the way of the Tao, right? We built a yang sort of understanding of survival. Then we built a yin understanding of relationship. Then we built a yang understanding of society and structure. And now we are moving into a new space of a yin understanding of how to use that structure and how to be spiritually in line and connected with one another. Yes, this sort of medium, like social media, connects us. But if you and I close our eyes right now and just be quiet and try and connect, not through our voices, but through our hearts, there's connection, right? Like, I can feel you on the other side of that connection. Because we are connected intrinsically. And the use of social media, the use of technology, is a masculine way of displaying our innate nature.
Yeah, and I think that when you were just talking about, I thought that was a great example when you were using technology and these platforms to show the father or the structure, you know. And then through that, we're using the feminine or the mother to connect on a real level. And for me, that's the reason why, like Clubhouse and Wisdom, I liked it. I was really drawn toward it because there wasn't a visual aspect right now. And it, to me, allows us to go into feelings, and yet we have the structure.
You just got, you just ran out of time. But if you wanted to join me again to finish, I would be happy to have you on. Yes, I absolutely agree. Emerald is coming back on, so we can finish that. So I'm just gonna be quiet while she comes back on.
Yeah, thanks. And I have like 2 minutes before
Oh,
my
absolutely.
phone dies. But I was just saying that with that structure, you know, using this platform, I was saying that I like the idea on Clubhouse and Wisdom that there's no visual because it's giving us the structure of the masculine or the father, and and it's also giving us, like you were just saying, that real ability to connect because we're not always being entertained through our eyes, you know, with videos and this and that, you know, where we can zone out, but we're actually using our heart space more because our eyes are, you know, somewhat closed. I mean, you know, people can put up a picture, but that's about it. And so we're using we're using more of the feminine inside the masculine, which is what I think is what I call the divine intercoursing. And I will be able to hear you, but my phone is about to
Absolutely.
die. So
Yeah.
I'm going to plug it up, but I'll have to disconnect my headphones. So thanks for allowing me to speak. Great. And I followed you. Thanks.
Okay, Emerald, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. If anybody else has a number between 1 and 81, you want to talk with me about the Tao Te Ching and get your Tao for the day, I would love to have you. Always do. Emerald and I talked about chapter 11 or verse 11 or stanza 11. I don't know what to say about these, but we join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes them move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood into a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being, but it is non-being, which we use. So we didn't go through this line by line, Emerald and I. We did talk quite a bit about different aspects of it. And we had addressed this idea of, oh, if we as a society have leaned on the masculine or the yang energy to such a degree that we are trying to use the structures that we've created rather than trying to allow the structure to embody that which we use. So our society is trying to just put more and more and more structure into place without having us actually utilize the space that the structure leaves. And so we're like, oh, here's a house. It would have more structure if we filled it up. Well, let's fill it with concrete and then the structure will stand forever. Yes, you're right. It will. Unfortunately, it will be a structure that is unusable. And we have to be able in our own lives as well as in our society, and that will trickle down. Like that if you want to talk about something that'll trickle down, that's going to trickle down. Like if you as an individual, like economics doesn't trickle down because economics doesn't grow. Economics doesn't, like if you put $2 in a safe together, they are not going to grow, right? There's not going to be any more. But if you put two people together, you will have more people, right? Like if you do that properly, like you will have more people. If you do that with energy, you will have more energy. You and I create more energy together. You know, and if we have some people that are doing the structure and some people that are doing the yielding, some people that are doing the space, some people that are doing the non-being. We work with being, but it's non-being that we use. This whole verse is talking about that masculine and feminine, that yin and yang, that, black and white, the two sides. Without both, you are going to, and without both types of energy in your life. And that's one thing that's interesting. Like last week, like I was talking about in the 40, when I embraced a new me this past week, it is because I was too masculine, right? In the way I loved myself. The love of myself was done through disciplinary things, right? My exercising, my routine, my journaling, my diet, all of these things were disciplinarian. It was like I had great discipline. Great. I had wonderful discipline. I'm really grateful for that. And I loved myself through that. And as I loved myself through that, I forgot to love myself intrinsically. I forgot to love myself in the way a mother loves a child, without judgment. And every time I would break too long from my diet or break too long from my my routine, I would judge myself. And so I was always at risk of pulling my love from myself, pulling the rug out from under me. And by living that way, I believed that I couldn't receive love from other people. And I have many, many relationships where I didn't allow others to receive. I didn't allow myself to receive love from other people. But that's changing now, because I am able to see that I intrinsically deserve love. And in order for me to do that, I want to keep up my diet. I want to keep up my routine. I want to keep up coming on here and talking with you. This is the beautiful thing about living. We work with being. I work with and build a structure for my life around being, around the masculine, around the yang energy of the universe. I do the things. But that which is so important to me, that which is beautiful in my life, that which is worthy of all of the love that is in the universe from each and every one of you and from myself included, it is the non-being that I am. And how beautiful is that? I can build a life by working. I can build a life by doing. But the love and all of the things and stuff, it's still coming from a place of non-being. It's coming from a place of yielding, as we talked about in 40. It's coming from a place of returning. And it's always cyclical. Man, I love the Tao. Like, I can't say enough. If any one of you has a number between 1 and 81 that you want to talk about, I would love for you to join me. I'm here regularly, and I would love to connect with you on here on Wisdom, and if you wanted to connect with me on Instagram, you can just check out my profile and connect with me there. All right. Now, I'm Martin John, and this is a Recover Yourself podcast. I talk all about recovery. Today at 1 p.m. Central, that is in 4 hours from now, I will be about just under 4 hours from now, I will be talking about recovery. And I think I'm going to be talking about recovering too. And I'm going to be talking about how each and every one of us is on a recovery journey, and we are recovering to who we are, to that spirit that we were separated from at birth and when we jumped into our bodies. Little by little, we're going to recover each and every one of us. And each and every one of us is going to recover ourselves. And by doing that, we will repair society. We will repair we will repair all of this to balance. We will bring it back to balance, not repair. There's nothing broken, but we will bring it back into balance. Right now, we are tilting very much into the yang energy, and by bringing in more yin energy, by bringing in more yielding, by bringing in more more inner space, we are going to be able to love ourselves a little bit deeper. We're going to be able to love ourselves a little bit more. That means we're going to be able to love our neighbors a little bit more as well. All right. I love you all. Thank you so much. Once again, I'm Martin John, the Recovery Mentor. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.